making a video. Yay. Yeah, not a surprise, right? It's only 2 videos I guess I'll respond to. One little one, just text and stuff, which is sort of annoying from the Carla Della Stella thing. I haven't responded to that in a long time. So, I saw it, so I figured I'll respond to it. But it is sort of related to Holiday. I made a video called Death. Just horrible. I didn't understand it. That's horrible in that sense. It was just kind of tedious, and it was so down and morbid about it all. It just seemed such a downer kind of a video. But anyway, and you use the word meaning. This idea of saying that, well, okay, life doesn't have a purpose in the sense that it isn't. We don't exist for a good reason. Like something intelligent didn't design us or initiate us or make us or do any of that shit. So we're not fulfilling some intentional goal. And then even if we contrive a goal, you can't really imagine what the goal would be. That could be at all sensible. What would be the goal? To jerk off a zillion times? To what? Grow another inch taller? There's just, there's no goal here. It's just a stupid, redundant grinding up of these mechanisms, these things that are full of ambition. They go through life, mostly fail, and then die. And it's just this rinse, repeat. Doesn't go anywhere. So that is a description. But he uses the word, it has no meaning. And that's where, to me, it goes all wrong. Is to confuse purpose and meaning. To conflate them, is to make a critical error. There's substantial meaning in existence as a consciousness. Every single one of them was meaningful. That's the whole point. Is that this is the value, and it just gets ground up. It gets disposed of, and some of these consciousnesses become quite eloquent, and they're quite beautiful mind kind of argument, and they're still just ground up. They're still just disposed of. Wisdom is a beautiful thing. Seeing a truth for the first time, or some kind of, these are all beautiful experiences, but they're also beautiful in the sense of establishing an invulnerability to doing it wrong, or being stupid, or being inefficient. The fact that these things do make us better at living, knowledge and wisdom. So these aren't meaningless things, and certainly our experience isn't meaningless. It's highly meaningful, and the fact that it is so very expensive and precious, that suffering is so torturous suffering is so dramatically bad. It's meaningful. It's a truth. So I find this just such a, the worse than the nihilist optimist is the nihilist pessimist. Because I'm not having fun, I'll just go home and that'll fix everything. Non-solution. And it comes up an awful lot where people say things. You're just saying, how can you think that's a solution? So it does bring up another video if I can find it. Do I have it here? Must I reload it? I guess I must reload it if I have it available. I think it's on the last video, right? I think so. We shall find out together. Something we can do together is find out. It's that Laura person again. Here it is. You've established that other people have values you don't share, but why try to change them? It's almost insane, right? You're saying you found out that people are starving unnecessarily, or you found out that war is being caused by something stupid, and you think you have a way that you could stop that from happening. Why should you? I mean, it's just a stupid question to ask. the world sucks because of these value problem, because people are have bad values. I'm not here because I did something stupid. I'm not here because I made a mistake. I'm here because somebody else made a mistake. And the only way to prevent bad things from happening is to prevent the people making bad things happen from making bad things happen. So why change them? Because they're being unproductive. Worse, they're being destructive. They're almost sadistically, in my opinion, torturing sentient life for no good reason whatsoever. So it's like you see a kid tormenting a cat or something, you know, tearing its fur off, you know, pulling its fur off. You wouldn't stop it. You'd ask somebody, well, why do you think you should change them? Why should you change that behavior? For one thing, I find that whatever I've tried in the past to persuade other people to see things my way, those who disagree just covered their ears and ignored me, and I always ended up preaching to the choir. Yeah, well, that's a defeatist way of looking at it. I mean, certainly there's lots of disappointments, lots of them, but there's lots of appointments. There's lots of successes also. So, you know, what do you want me to tell you? I mean, again, I can just say to you that people have conveyed to me that I changed their life. So, change is possible. Is it happening at a rate that I would say is good enough? No, not even close. Do I think it's impossible for me to do better? No. Do I think it's impossible for me to do a lot better? No. So, it would be stupid for me to give up now that I have the tools possibly to do something. Dead, I don't have. Dead, I know I are dead in the sense of not living to do that. Gives you no hope. I mean, surrender is what you're saying. Surrender. Admit you're defeated. Why? Why give up? I still got a gun. You know, I'm going to point it and shoot it. Why not be satisfied with simply modeling the values you personally prioritize highly? I don't know. Why not be satisfied? What? Putting on some more band-aids, knowing that the injuries are going to keep getting made? And what? Enjoy that? Fuck you. I mean, if I was sadistic, I could enjoy that, but I'm not a sadist, so how could I enjoy that? Stop evangelizing and just forget people with values you don't like. Yeah, just forget that they're going to keep causing the problem. Oh, yeah, that's the sensible thing to do. You fix a problem by just forgetting about its existence. Yeah, that's exactly why the world sucks. And I don't even know why you would say something this stupid in my video. Just wondering? Well, you got to wonder a lot harder because you're not trying. I mean, that's not even trying to think. You know, to force me to answer these stupid questions. This is fucking stupid questions. Yeah. Why? It's because it can't stop if somebody doesn't stop it. Yeah. The least you can do is stand up and say stop. That doesn't cost you any blood at all. So yeah, I can do the minimum at least. God damn. It's just so, I mean, it just makes you realize, man, you're talking about people being deaf and dumb. Frankly, deaf and dummy, know thyself. Because fuck, you couldn't be any dumber. You really couldn't. Oh shit, I think I closed the wrong window. Well, maybe I can go to the save it in my history. Non-existence of a person? No, that's not it. Yeah, yes, thank you. YouTube sucks. Well, this is Firefox's problem, sorry. Blaming the wrong entity. So anyway, back to the meaning thing. Okay, so in this video that she's responding to, or he, or whatever this faker is, you know, this person who can't even be honest enough about who they are and where they're coming from. But anyway, so I made a video explaining just that evolution is a crappy creator. Okay, it's not Dr. Frankenstein even, in that it doesn't have a plan at all. It doesn't have any conception of any kind of ethics. Doesn't know what pain and suffering means, or doesn't know its significance. It's an incredibly dumb force of filtering. It filters results, based on an equation, probability equations, in the sense that the environment induces an obligation, and I mean induces in the strict sense of that word, the literal sense. It's an induction in terms of the reaction. The reaction isn't directly required, but it's required if you're going to succeed. Yeah, something like that. It's not a direct, this is what you will do. This is the confinement, this is the obligation, and you can satisfy the obligation by either growing wings and flying, or growing a big brain, or doing some other thing, but you're going to have to do something, or you're going to fail. All right, evolution isn't a design mechanism. So, I think clearly the process of evolution is a design mechanism. It creates product. And it would be just silly, I think, to say something creates product and it's not a design mechanism. It creates a product. The process does create product. And it does it over and over again by clearly repeatable results. You could argue that the predator-prey mechanism repeats itself. That the South American jaguar is a pretty good duplication of the African leopard. That, and this, especially within marsupials, you had this same kind of thing. There was the predator marsupials have been killed, but the same mechanism was created, even in different kinds of animals. The same relationships exist. So it is a category mistake to evaluate evolution as a design mechanism. Well, that's just being redundant. And to say things like design is stupid. Well, you're just claiming this, but you won't demonstrate it with anything called evidence. Clearly isn't a category error to put evolution in the category of a creative force, a force that creates within a confined definition of rules. It makes no sense when evolution is not a design mechanism to begin with. Evolution is an adaptation mechanism. Well, that's what you say. And it's almost like that's being redundant. An adaptation mechanism? You have to explain what adaptation to what? For life for life? No, for matter. Evolution started with chemistry. It didn't start with a living thing. It started with unliving things. And then it made living things that had no feeling capacity. And then it made feeling things. So to say life and feeling life are the same thing anyway would be stupid, in my opinion. That's a category error. To call both sensate life and unsensate life is a category error. It's just too loose a definition. So when we say these words, it should mean something. So we should say feeling life or unfeeling life, because those two things are very different. In a constantly changing environment, it doesn't constantly change. Sometimes it changes by very regular patterns, so that the change isn't without a pattern, and it certainly isn't constant in the sense that you're not always, like every 5 years, you're not going from breathing ammonia to breathing oxygen to breathing nitrogen to breathing hydrogen. So it's not that radical, this changing environment. And some organisms have been the same for 300 million years. It's such an unchanging environment. Instead of a design mechanism, life in a constantly changing environment instead of a design mechanism works well. Why doesn't it? Evolution is an adaptation mechanism for life in a constantly changing environment instead of a design mechanism works well. That's not even a coherent sentence. So I probably shouldn't respond to incoherent sentences. But again, calling evolution an adaptation mechanism, you might as well just call evolution as evolution. You know, I mean, it's just not a sufficiently defined label. Adaptation mechanism. I mean, and you're going to say that adapting, having something being adapted to a circumstances, that's like just saying an improving design for a washing machine, or improving the design of the automobile or the combustion engine or whatever it would be. Of course, that's what the mechanism does. It changes it to adapt to more efficiently wash dishes. Evolution is a creative process. Well, again, creative in what sense of the word creative? Yeah, obviously it creates life. Obviously it created sentient life. Obviously it created wings. It created everything we have, the process of it. But if you're meaning creative in the sense of creating by a formula of aesthetics or beauty or some description of that, it clearly fails dismally. It's not making the David, so to speak. In the sense of bringing steadily forth new variations of life. New variations, again, in the context of just being redundant variations of predator and prey. Just more parasites. They can all be put in the category of all these creations. Parasite. It feeds on would be one of the sentences that would be included. It feeds on. It consumes. And there would be an answer to what it does consume. And they all consume something. They all feed on something. So to say new, steadily bringing forth new variations, well, the newness of the variations are not spectacularly new. They're in some ways just spectacularly more insidious. I mean, we're clearly, just by size alone, weak and a non-improvement over dinosaurs. You could argue that our design is slow and sloppy and inefficient compared to the streamlined efficiency of a crocodile. Alright, anyway. Design presupposes a fixed goal. Well, there you go. So, yes. So I concede that good design presupposes a reasonable goal. So, yes. The goal is, if you're going to make a nuclear power plant, that it produces energy, not radiation. Yeah. I'm arguing that evolution produces the very thing that is failure, which is unnecessary suffering. That's why the design sucks. That's why the process of evolution sucks. Is because it has no way to modulate, control the production of its waste. In your case, you presuppose sentient well-being as its goal. As its goal. I don't presuppose any such thing, so that's just a cheap little lie. I've never presupposed that evolution has that as a goal. I've never presupposed that it has the capacity to have that as a goal. What I have presupposed is that without that capacity, without deserve having something to do with it, without the merit, the intrinsic importance that exists, without its ability to recognize the difference between a pile of rocks and a kitten, the fact that evolution can't tell the difference, okay, that is a significant statement about the functionality of that process. That ignorance is glaring and profound and has to do with the fact that it can't score a goal because it obviously doesn't even know which way goal is. However, evolution has led to sentience and the hedonic values not as an absolute goal, but as a regulative mechanism. So what? And again, who's arguing that it's an absolute goal? I'm saying evolution has no rational goals, it has no intelligent goals. It's a dumb, crude process. That's the fact of it. It's a dumb, crude, ignorant process. It has no intelligence built into it, any appreciation for anything intelligently acknowledged. It doesn't recognize this. It doesn't. You're claiming I'm making a category error. Evolution has no even any concept of categories, and no rational concept of the difference between feeling good and feeling bad, as if they're the same thing. So again, it's a silly accusation to say I'm making a category error when I'm describing quite accurately the dysfunction, the failure of evolution to function, because it has no capacity to even assign a category, a rational assignment of categories. As for it being a regulatory mechanism, well, obviously that's what consciousness became late in evolution, and it regulates by creating a carrot on a stick, which is almost a kind of torture, a kind of abuse, thing you do to a slave animal, a beast, and whips. So it creates pain and suffering, okay, and promise of pleasure as a mechanism to control behavior. And it does that enslaving organisms every day. It enslaves them with these mechanisms. The bee drone, the ants, the beta of any mammalian kind. The beta organisms are just ground up. They have value as shark food. They don't have value as having a dignity or an importance or a meaning to nature or evolution at all. They're just to be ground up as the fodder to, exemplify the blue bloods. But as a okay, so it is a centinocentric misjudgment. So this idiot is going to argue that it's a bigotry and a stupidity for you to be conscious of the fact through your consciousness. You can't really help it. You have to be conscious to recognize the meaning of consciousness. But they're going to argue that that's just a bigotry. That's just a kind bigotry. So when you recognize the distinction between you and a piece of grass, you recognize the difference between 100 billion neurons producing a complex consciousness and a blade of grass. When you recognize that distinction and say this thing has importance in terms of its welfare and this other thing doesn't matter because it can't be harmed, it can't feel, it can't be tortured, it's immune to the whip, that is a irrational bigotry. No, that's just rational, proper categorization. Sentience is a significant attribute. It's a meaningful attribute. It can't be reduced to a pile of rocks. It's silly to do that. It's not the same. My biological function is not only subtly different from a blade of grass, it's profoundly different than a blade of grass when I'm conscious. When I'm unconscious, yes, I'm a vegetable then. Okay, human sentiocentric misjudgment to call evolution flawed because it does not maximize sentient well-being. So again, it's just this idea that it's not a system isn't flawed if deserve has nothing to do with it. So if you're playing a board game and it has nothing to do with deserve, you answer the questions right and your piece gets thrown in jail. It's totally irrational to rational behavior or conduct. That wouldn't be a flawed game. That's supposed to be a game that makes sense to you. Deserve having nothing to do with it is supposed to make sense. And wasting torture would make sense. So if you played a board game and the game actually gave you AIDS or something, that would be perfectly hilarious. No harm done. It's a fake judge. It's a false judgment. Yeah, sorry. You're a false. You're not. You can't be. There's. I doubt the credibility of you having any judgment. So how can you judge a false judgment when I don't even think you could possibly have something called judgment? Because this is an idiotic statement. To say it's false to judge something based on merit are to base things based on the fact that you make a distinction between a pile of rocks and a sentient kitten. That's, for you to call that a false judgment is too insane to be called a reasonable judgment. Yeah, that's a simple way to say it. As false as a mouse calling the world flawed because the world isn't made of cheese. So again, implying that it's just silly for sentient organisms, through their sentient capacity, to gain an appreciation for torture or suffering, and to say this is the value in the universe, and that this value is more precious than diamonds, and more precious than gold, and more precious than anything else in the universe, and that torture should never be squandered or wasted. It should never happen without purposeful reason. It should never be wasted, ever. Ever can its waste be called the best solution. It's waste. So that's all just bigotry talking, which is just silly. Even a mouse that went to grammar school would clearly understand that this is a false analogy, a straw man, that has nothing to do with what we rationally have to do in the world, which is use our intelligence to find real value, not fake value, not to be fooled by fool's gold, and to see the real gold. And I'm sure if a mouse had gone to grammar school as I did and go to high school as I did, the mouse would understand that the welfare of the other mice was more valuable than a piece of dessert cheese. Now maybe if the mouse is starving, he might say he's got to get his cheese to continue his existence, and therefore he doesn't have to be concerned about anything else at the moment. But it would only be in that circumstance where the mouse could ever justify taking the cheese, going for the cheese, or especially the extra cheese, at the expense of some other sentient mouse. So you're insulting mice, essentially, by implying that mice wouldn't be able to understand the difference between other feeling mice, even their children, and cheese. Because quite clearly they are able to do that. Mice take care of each other, and they can't be seduced into killing each other for a piece of cheese. Yeah, it's just factually true. So anyway, she says some more shit here in the description. It's kind of a repeat, but it's said a little differently, so it's kind of important. Evolution isn't a design mechanism. Therefore, it makes no sense to evaluate it based on design criteria from any domain. I mean, that's just so strange. So, again, but is this key word, evaluate, and this comes up with people like Hothliday and these other people. They can't, apparently, they can't understand why, and the Anacondovods even, that you would have any right or place to judge evolution as a creator, like a Dr. Frankenstein. That somehow he's above reproach. The creator, nature, is above criticism or critique. It has demonstrated no intelligence, it's demonstrated no brilliance, no anything, and yet we're supposed to just say, whatever you say, nature, you're God, you're the authority, you're just absolutely brilliant, and we have no business critiquing you. I mean, it's just, why is it a sacred cow? Why? Why is it above criteria from any domain? Silly. It's like calling a bee flawed design because while the bee can fly, it cannot transport human passengers like an airplane. So again, another false argument, as if I'm saying that evolution should be, number one, doing something for humans, but that somehow flying these passengers, this analogy has nothing to do with the reality of the circumstance. It's not about what nature isn't providing. It's not about because it lacks comforts. It's that it's providing torture. Okay, that's what it's providing, and mechanisms for the torture to take place. So that's a little bit different than talking about something falling short of a standard in the sense of not giving you, more, and having too little. I mean, probably a better way to say that, but it's not about not fulfilling some I want more expectation, like I want more of it. It's saying that it's too insufficient. Those are two different critiques. So your analogy doesn't even fit. Therefore, it is a flawed design since it has no utility for humans. No, again, it's like saying if bees, if bees were AIDS, you call bees a flawed design, or something like that. Clearly, the judgment being made is that there's wasted torture, and there's anything that creates wasted torture, unnecessary torture, would have to be called flawed, because the word waste and unnecessary, and clearly the importance of torture, can't add up to anything else. Waste is always bad, and clearly if you've established that what's being wasted is intrinsically important, there's just no way to escape bad design. But the bee has never designed to begin with, nor did it evolve its ability to fly for the purpose of transporting passengers, and analogously, sentience wasn't designed to begin with, nor do sentient beings have feelings for the purpose of maximizing their good feelings or minimizing their bad feelings. Well, again, the fact that there is no purpose to the designer, the Frankenstein doesn't even have a mission statement. He just wants to play with the parts, essentially. That's the judgment being passed, is that this thing functions for no better reason than an AIDS virus. It's not God. It's not smart. It has no reason to give it any benefit of the doubt. There's every reason to give it every scrutiny. It has no brain, and you're saying it's above scrutiny. That's silly. If somebody showed you their invisible driver's license when they were driving recklessly down the road, you wouldn't say, "Oh, okay, now I understand. Go ahead, drive." No, you'd be exactly, well, what qualification do you have for driving? What what evidence do you have that you can do this? You're not showing me anything. Evolution's not showing me any purpose or function or product. So why should I just accept that there is one? Because you have some bizarre imagination, like you can imagine the purple unicorns will be happy if we survive. I don't know what your contrivance of a mission statement is. That some person named Theodore Compliconto is going to go to Alpha Centauri and stick an American flag on it? I mean, what exactly do you think is going to happen that in any way is going to be something I could call a rational function, a purpose, to not minimize suffering? But here's the end statement. I should have just read this and just said, there, that's all you need to hear, right? Too stupid. Feelings have no objective value. It's as nonsensical as saying that it can't be proven or demonstrated that torturing sentient organisms is bad. That's all that's saying. That you should have some doubt. That it's perfectly reasonable to doubt whether torture is not a good thing, is not a bad thing. Yeah, you should doubt that premise. That premise is infinitely doubtable. It's just totally without any kind of reasonable assurance that there's any connection between bad and unnecessary suffering. That's all that statement says. His objective is just a definition, an accurate description of reality. So she's saying, or it's saying, it's not likely to be an accurate description of reality to say torture is bad. it's an accurate description of reality, which makes it an objective value, a truth. It's a fact. Suffering is bad. The word bad doesn't mean anything without the word suffering. Torture is bad. It's a bad event. Period. 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 It's not a disputable truth. There's no rational counter-argument besides some ambiguous maybe, possibly, but there's no description of what that possibility would look like, how it could possibly be possible. How is it possibly possible? What is your scenario where torture isn't torture? It isn't what we know it is. I've personally experienced some of it. I know what it is. You're not going to fool me. It's intrinsically and fundamentally bad because it was created for the very purpose of being bad. And it's a fact. Facts are objective. Okay, when something is a fact, when it is a truth, even if it's a description of something that isn't material, if it is true, it's a fact, and it's objective, and it's absolute, and it's real. So anyway, but this is the kind of thing that does make you quite hopeless. Like, oh, what the fuck am I living on a planet with? I mean, these kind of rationalizations, these kind of excuse making. Feelings have no objective value. I mean, you could just run that through your head forever and say, how can they not have objective value? The implications of them not having objective value is that you're saying to me, it doesn't matter. And Hathaway said shit like this, and you're just like, oh, so I could create a planet, and I could put 6 billion torture victims on it, on gurneys, having nails hammered into their eyes all day long. Just hammer nails in all day long. And it would be the same. There would be no objective difference between that planet and a planet where I just sit down and have a cupcake. A rational brain, the smartest thing in the universe, by this definition, the smartest thing, the most knowledgeable thing in the universe wouldn't be able to make a distinction between torture planet and cupcake planet. It would be totally confused as to which one. It wouldn't know what button to press. No, it would know. And you people are silly to pretend it wouldn't know. And that's all you're doing, you're pretending. Because you know better. So, you're just desperately trying to cling to some sort of stupid fucking, porridge fable, that you're feeding on. You want to make the Teletubbies real. Well, they're not. It's a lie. Okay? Reality doesn't work that way. It's pitiful. So anyway, till next time. I think it's enough anyway. So I feel like I've had enough. It's just really another painful interaction with human beings.